In this video, we're going to be doing the double upward flower with the hook sword. Now, this is a fairly basic movement when it comes to weapons training. You usually use this as a warm-up. However, when it comes to working with double weapons, it gets more complicated. And with the hook swords, it has an extra element with this extra length with the bottom spike. So I suggest if you do not know how to do the double upward flower, don't start with your hook swords. Instead, start with something like this, a soft pool noodle or even just a short stick, just to get the motion down. And then later on, you'll have to be worrying about the extra room in the front and making extra adjustments for this bottom spike. So let's start with the sticks and we'll work towards the hook swords. Now let's just start with one stick. So we do the basic figure eight flowering motion. Okay, so what we're gonna do is with our single stick, I want to think of coming upward and across like an X across my body. Okay, always from the lower corner to the upper corner. Now, the easiest way of thinking of doing this is pointing behind you and down and low. Once it's pointing down, come up and point up and forward. Okay, so I point back, behind, up and forward. Now it's going to be the same thing here. I point back, behind, up and forward. Back, behind, up and forward, back, behind, up and forward. Back, behind, up and forward, back, behind, up and forward. Notice I kind of start making this already circular. Once it's up, I just tip it over until it points back behind me, point it up, tip it over till it points back behind me, and point it up. Okay, so again, back, up, back, up. When you get comfortable, make this a nice big motion. And then when you get comfortable with that, make it a small motion using just the wrist. Now, when we start adding our other hand into this and when we have two weapons, it becomes a little bit more complicated. So you have to be able to do this upward flower easily on both sides. So make sure you can do that with both your right and your left hand before you start trying to do it with both. Now, I have a simple rule for this, and that is left hand is always leading and left hand is always underneath. So what we're going to do is lead with the left hand, right hand follows, okay? Same idea applies. We want to think of starting from behind the body, come up and point. Now, the easiest way to do this is start with both to the right because we open up the arms here. It's much easier. Now from here, bring it back. And again, I'm going to start with the left hand. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky because we're going to come underneath our right hand and then our right hand will follow. So when we bring it back to our right side, it's open, open. And then when we go from our left to our right, it's tied up. We go underneath and then underneath. So open, open, twist. Open, open, twist. Okay? If I'm facing this way, coming from my right side, nice and easy. Once I'm here, left hand goes first. My right hand still pointing back. Right hand follows. Okay? Left, right. Left, right. Left, right. And then once you get comfortable with that, we're going to start turning it into a smaller motion here. So left hand is leading first, right hand is following. Okay? Nice and simple. Now when we have the hook swords in our hands, really it's the same exact motion. And I suggest that you take your time at first because you want to do some nice big motions to understand the weapon and the circles that you are making. Now we have to account for a little bit extra weapon. When we're holding the stick, everything is straight up. But now with the hook swords, we have this front crescent blade and we have this downward, we have this bottom spike right here. So you're going to you cannot have your hands too close together because you'll start catching your arm on this bottom spike or you catch the other weapon. And when they tie up, you have a chance of ricocheting and then hitting yourself with the weapon. So again, I would suggest start on your right side, big scoop, and then here, as you come across with the left, pay attention. Turn the shoulders with it. Nice big motion here. Big. And then again, facing this way. big, open, cross, open, cross. Now, of course, whenever you have a bladed weapon, and especially with the hook swords, you want to pay attention to your blade edge. You want to make sure that the crescent blade, as well as the hook, as well as the sharpened edge of the blade are always leading. So this should be almost as if you're cutting forward with the hook sword. So I don't want to have a sloppy hand position as I bring things across. I want to try to have the blade point forward as if I'm slicing with the blade or trying to hook upward with the hook itself. Now the last thing you'll want to do is, like I said, we'll tighten up more at the wrists to do this last flower. But as you do this, give yourself some space up and down. This is the key. You really don't need to give yourself extra space next to the blade. We don't have to space out sideways, but we do need to space out up and down. So that is the most important thing you need to remember once you start tightening up that flower and that circle. From there, everything else is exactly the same. Just keep a little bit extra space up and down, and you'll have the upward flower. Okay, so there you have it. The upward flower is not that difficult once you get it down with just sticks. And I highly suggest this no matter how skilled you are as a martial artist. Start with double sticks first. Make sure that you have the correct form and timing for this before you start doing it with hook swords. And of course, when you do it with the hook swords, start slow, start bigger, start more open, and then you can start closing in those wrists, because this is the biggest adjustment that you're going to have to make. And especially if you already have training with double broadswords or double straight swords or double sticks, you're going to have to mentally train yourself not to be so close, because we're used to grabbing all the way down at the bottom of the weapon. If you have any questions on this one, drop them down in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I'll see you in the next one.